Welcome, one and all, to Tune In Radio U podcast. With me today, I'm super excited about this interview. I have Tarra Lee. She specializes in Ayurvedic medicine and she's also a Vedic astrologer. Welcome. How are you, Tarra?
Thank you, Ruth. Really well, and thank you for having me in.
Yeah, like I said, I'm super excited about this one. This one is, I'm very curious about everything that you do, really, and I can't wait to get into it. So, for starters, what is Ayurvedic medicine?
Yeah, so Ayurveda medicine it means the science of life. And so it's a holistic Indian-based modality. And its philosophy is the connection between the mind, body, and soul. So really addressing health on all of those levels. So it has the different branches, but really like that holistic approach to health.
Which I think when we're talking allopathic medicine, a lot of that is missing, right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah, really going to the root cause. And
mm,
it has a focus on the preventative medicine, not just, fixing the disease state, but how can we maintain our body before it gets to that level?
yes, super important. Absolutely. So, with this type of medicine, like, what are you using exactly? Like, give me a scenario.
Yeah, so basically, the first thing we look at is going over your medical history. So we do that so we can come up with it's called a samprati, which is basically the health journey of you and what has led you to this point. So that's really important. And we spend an hour and a half with our clients, really diving deep on things that you might think are not connected, but it tells us the whole picture, because it focuses on the mental state, the emotional state, what you've experienced in your life, and how that can manifest in an ailment. So we spend time doing that, and then we come up with the samprati, which is the disease process. So what has happened, what has been the triggering effects. So then we can get to the root cause. So then we'll usually prescribe body treatments. So that can be from things like Shirodhara, which is continuous oil poured on the third eye, which really helps with anxiety, really getting out of the mind, insomnia, things like that. So a lot of these ancient healing body treatments. And then there's also focusing on the diet and lifestyle. So we'll look at the routines that you have every day, your diet, and we also look at your energetic body type. So when I say energetic body type, we have Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So everyone has an element of these three, like a ratio of each one, but will be more dominant in one. So from our birth, we are born with an energetic print. And then from that, we always want to come back to that balance. So in our life, so we're born with what we call a prakriti, which is, what we were born with, what makes us balanced. And then depending on what's happened with us in our life, we kind of get off that balance or what was our constitution. So then we have what we call is the vikriti. So the vikriti is the change state. So we want to acknowledge what the change state is and acknowledge what the prakriti is. So then we can always be coming back to that reset of what we were born with. So that is what we look at in bringing the body back to balance on all those levels.
Beautiful. I love the fact that it focuses, like, firstly on a holistic approach, but then a balance as well, because balance is super important, and especially in this day and age. I feel like most of us are out of whack in some way, shape, or form, right? Just because of the stresses, everyday stresses, work, uh, family life, traumas that we might have had in our past, definitely just puts us out of balance. So that's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, and
Um,
in Ayurveda, we always say that the when we manifest disease, it's always when our doshas are out of balance. So that's our energetic body type. So that's why knowing what our Vikriti is and our Prakriti is so important, because we can identify which one is really out of balance, and then focus on that one, bringing that one back into balance. And like you say, it doesn't take much to take us off balance. So it's not something that you just do and then set and forget. It's something that we're always mindful of. But this is what Ayurveda helps us with, getting in tune with our body, with our own rhythms, and then understanding when we are out of balance and how to bring the body back.
Beautiful. Tell me about Vedic astrology.
Yeah, so this is an arm, and it is a sister science from Ayurvedic medicine. So just like yoga is, and just like Vatsu, which is like an Indian feng shui, these systems are all working together. So Vedic astrology is referred to as the science of light and also the science of karma. So it is really to do with self-discovery, self-inquiry, and really that self-empowerment. So it really connects us back to our soul's journey and what we're here, what we've incarnated in this lifetime to do. So Ayurveda is focused mainly on the body, whereas I see as the Vedic astrology as really focusing on the soul. And why that is important is because in Ayurveda, we say one of the greatest health tonics is knowing what our purpose is in life, and who we are, and what we're here to do. So you can understand why they mesh together.
Yeah, absolutely. That's that holistic thing, just
Yeah.
on another level, right? Um, what's the difference between Vedic astrology and Western astrology? I feel like most, due to the fact that we're in Western world, uh, I think the Western astrology is what's more widely used. What is the difference between the two?
Yeah, definitely. So they're based on two different systems. So the Western is based on the tropical system, and the Vedic is based on the sidereal system. So what does that mean? It means that so the Vedic system is based on the astronomy. So it's based on the fixed stars. So it's directly related to science in that regard. And this is why we call it the science of light, whereas the Western astrology is based on the Earth's equinoxes and on the tilt. And so as the world has tilted, we've got what we call is the precession. And Western astrology hasn't accounted for that tilt. So 2,000 years ago, when Western astrology was brought into fruition, these two systems were integrated and were together. But since this precession has happened, those systems have moved apart. But because the Vedic astrology is based on astronomy and fixed stars, it has always got that single point of truth. So that system hasn't changed. So what does that mean? I still think that the two systems have a lot of merit, but what you'll notice now is because of the Earth's tilt, these two systems are now 24 degrees apart. So in a zodiac sign, there's 30 degrees. So when you think 24, that's nearly a whole zodiac sign different. And so that's why there's all this like, oh, is that my sun sign? Is this, yeah. So it could mean that in the Western system, you could be a Capricorn, but in the Vedic system, you could be a Sagittarius. So I do encourage people to look at their Vedic chart, because if you've never identified with that, it's a really good place to start. But also want to premise that as well, there is a focus on Vedic astrology to really incorporate remedies and tools, and not just the knowledge that the Western system is known for. So really going deep on how can you integrate this information? How can you embody it in your life? So those are the main differences between the systems.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Um, so tell me how did you get here? Like doing this stuff yourself and using these modalities to help people. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, so
basically.
the journey started for me when my mum was diagnosed with a really aggressive cancer. And she went down the Western path. And I definitely think there's a place for Western medicine. So I'm not going to diss that in this forum. But I just saw there was a lot of gaps. And from like a soul place, it just didn't sit well with me. And so I was always searching for natural methods that could help her in addition to the Western system. And I just could not find a system that could address all the questions that I had. So for example, like my mum was the healthiest person that I've ever known in the normal society terms. You know, I never saw her eat a takeaway. She didn't drink, she didn't smoke. And so I just couldn't understand how she had developed this illness. It just didn't make sense to me. And so it was through that journey and this quest for wanting answers that, unfortunately, it wasn't until she passed away, but on the plane ride home from after she had passed away, I was reading an energy medicine book and it had the term Ayurveda in it. And there was just like a soul yes that I needed to look into this. And so, yeah, as soon as I got off the plane, I looked where I could study this. And it was the first time going through that journey that there was a system that described the mind, body, soul connection. And I realized that it wasn't, you know, related to what food she was putting in her body, but it was her emotions and it was her mental state that had manifested this disease. And then that just changed how I looked at life completely. Because I think we focus so much on food, and I definitely think that's important, but there's so much more to it. And in Ayurveda, we say disease first manifests in the mind and then into the body. So this is why it's really important for me to, especially with the Vedic astrology, really look into that self-inquiry and go on that deeper level and first clear it and cleanse it in that. And then it's much easier to do that than do it from the body because it materializes, it becomes dense in the body.
So what would you say, like knowing your mother, how I'm sure you knew her, and the way that she thought and you know that side of things, what would be your biggest insight on mindset, and how we do manifest ailments or illnesses, and how we manifest the opposite, health?
Yes, definitely. And she's been my greatest teacher in that regard because I really did look at what her mindset was and the journey that she was on. And she had a very restrictive religious upbringing. And I feel from a very young age, like her identity was kind of stripped from her. And that was something that she struggled with for the rest of her life. And she became, you know, a people pleaser. And she did all the right things because that's what she was told to do. So she fundamentally never looked after herself first. Which, you know, we always look at as like a selfless act, and that's, you know, that's what you want. But, you know, as a society, we're learning now that you need to look after yourself first. And so she had, I would say, a lot of resentment about how her life had played out. And before she got ill, it was very clear to me that her soul no longer wanted to be here. And I really believe when you get to that level, this is when we can manifest the illness, because if you don't want to be here, the soul will work it out for you on how that can come into fruition. And yeah, so it was really, she had a lot of resentment. And if you look at the emotional underlining of, she had bowel cancer, and that is not being able to let go. And even before she passed away, about a week before she passed away, we were doing like a lot of soul work, but there was elements still then that she wasn't able to let go of. Like she was still harboring that deep resentment to things that had happened in her childhood. That yeah, that it was a lifelong journey for her.
Hmm. Well, I'm deeply sorry for your loss. Absolutely. I can't even begin to imagine what that would have been like for you, but it's beautiful to see that you have taken from it something that you can share to support other people in their health and well-being, not only in a physical way, but in a spiritual and mental way as well. Now, when we first we had a chat together. You said something about, well, I don't know if it was on a message. I can't remember exactly where you said it, but you said something about if you're not living your purpose, and this is something that comes with, is it, well, it's probably the whole system, the Vedic astrology, Ayurveda, where if you're not living your purpose, this is where you can manifest illness and disease. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. Because on that soul level, it's really important that we're in touch with our soul and what it wants to do. And in Ayurveda, we say the quickest way to manifest an illness is to not be living your purpose, and not to put so much pressure on that, because I think, there's a lot of us that are like, oh, well, okay, what's my purpose? And I've got to find it out. And I want to say that it's not a career, it's not a title, it's nothing like that. It's a very deep self-inquiry. What is it? What is this journey about? What is your soul wanting to develop? Why have you been incarnated at this time in this body? Like that level of, yeah, what is your soul wanting to do, and that soul growth. I think it's very important. And I think in this world, it's so easy to be distracted by so many different things, and, just ticking the boxes and searching for things that are taking us away from our true nature.
Mm, absolutely. What would be the best advice you could give someone that's trying to find their soul purpose right now? I can imagine most of us, like have no idea.
Yes, yes, I love this question. So I really believe it comes down to sitting with yourself and just focusing on what it is you love. Like, what do you love? Like, what lights you up? Like, what are you doing when you're in that flow state?
Mm,
And then writing it down, because I find when we write, um, we're focusing on the word, and we're not distracted by anything else. So this is what I like to tell people to do. So write it down, write things that light you up, write things down that, when you're a child, you really love to do. And that is a really good indication. Like whenever you're feeling something from the heart, from the soul, that is an indication. And so, we can use these tools of meditation and mantras and things like that. But I really think it is that self-inquiry and that self-reflection that we
mm,
don't give ourselves the chance and the space and the time to do. And we need stillness to do that. And so, yeah, getting in nature is a really good way to connect back to ourselves. So
mm.
yeah, that is where I would start in that topic.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's literally so many things that you could do, right? to get yourself into that flow state. And yeah, um, God, I remember when I was younger, it was I loved playing basketball. I just was so good at it. I was so good at it, and um, I just remember being able to run rings around people that I was playing with, and I wasn't even there was no thought happening at the time. It was just like I created like a vortex or something, and it was beautiful and it felt so right and so good. Um, but yeah, unfortunately or fortunately, who knows, I developed an injury that I couldn't recover from, and I had to stop playing basketball when I was a teenager. So um, that was
Mm.
that dream gone. But I think I'm doing what I'm supposed to do now anyway, so it's all good. What, Tara, do you think is going on in the world today?
I think there is, I definitely feel that there's an awakening. I think a lot more people are connecting to consciousness. I think a lot more people are starting to uh, question everything. I think question their identity, what they're doing, authority, um, power struggles, structures, really questioning what are these made up systems and do we have to follow them? I really am seeing that happen a lot more, and especially to the people I speak to now, there is that inquiry, and I haven't seen it on such a bigger scale than now, which is exciting. And I think it is going to continue to happen. This questioning, this curious nature. Well, why do we do it like that? Why is this how it is? Can we create something better? So I really do believe that even when we look in astrology, there's the ascending into darkness and then the rising into the light. And where we are at the moment, we're rising into the light. So I really feel like there's more light coming on into the earth. And so light is always truth. So there's going to be more truth coming out onto the planet, and really exposing darkness. So, we can't have the darkness with the light. So I think it is a very exciting, pivotal time to be here. And yeah, I'm really, really grateful to witness this journey.
Mm, yeah, same.
Is that how you feel?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I just wanted to ask you about the Vedic astrology side of things, because you know how in Western astrology they talk about the Age of Aquarius, right?
Yeah.
And we're now supposed to be coming into, or have come into, and we're starting to, we've been here for maybe a little bit, um, of the Age of Aquarius, where the darkness is coming up, as in it's being exposed. There is way more light, and the truth is coming out. There's a lot of awakening, all that sort of stuff, exactly what you said. So is that kind of the same in the Vedic side of things?
Yeah, it definitely is. So, from Vedic astrology, it's a little bit different because we believe that we haven't entered the age of Aquarius yet. We're still in Pisces, which is really that the more mystical, the more inquiring side of things. But when we look at overall where humanity is heading, it is very similar. There is that more light, and you can see that we are on that. Might not feel like it sometimes, but there is definitely more like light workers, more light coming onto the earth. So yeah, I definitely think that is really relevant, and yeah, I resonate with that.
And is that the fact that in Vedic astrology that it says that it's still in Pisces? Is that because of that tilt shift, that it's not quite there yet? And is it, when does it say that it's going to start in the Vedic astrology side of things?
Yeah, not for quite a few thousand years. So
Oh, right. Just a little
Yeah.
bit off. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing with that is, and even in Western astrology, when they say like, how can we measure it? Because even in Western astrology, they can't say it's coming in on this particular date.
Sure, sure.
It really is reflective of the consciousness and how quickly our consciousness is getting there. And so that is why it's so important to be increasing our frequency and our vibration, because, you know, that is our job alone. So once, you know, every time we increase our consciousness and our frequency, we're creating more, you know, a higher vibration on the earth. So I don't like to put timelines on it. Like, I think we can, yeah, we can defy the odds. I'm very optimistic. So
Love that. Love that. And I think that's part of raising the vibration, right?
yeah,
So basically what you're saying, it's up to us as
yeah.
individuals to do our own inner work, yeah, to raise the vibration. How does one go about doing this?
Yeah, so what I love, and you as well, is the sound vibration, as well as movement in the body, mantra work, meditation, grounding. I really like to work with crystals as well. Like, crystals hold a particular frequency, and a lot of them, no matter what you do, they're always going to hold that frequency. So just being around, because we're, you know, we're frequency, just being around that frequency to anchor and lift our vibration higher. I really like using that as a tool as well.
You, I noticed on your website that you've got crystal, is it metamorphosis
Yeah,
coming soon?
yeah. So I've really been diving into that. It's something that's only come into my awareness over the last year,
Hmm.
and just working with the crystals myself, I have received so much support on a energetic level, just shifting, and especially when things were happening in the world, just like using obsidian and things like that, just for really grounding. And yeah, like, I know I can feel the power, and the more that you believe in them, the more that they work for you. So whatever that is, I'm just going to dive into it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's true for anything. I mean, it is, we create our external reality, right? By our belief systems. So, you know, if we're like, oh, crystals, yeah, whatever, they're just a bunch of rocks, like
Mm,
it's probably what they're going to be for you. But if you have that solid belief that you're like, you know, this crystal is going to provide me with XYZ energy and do this for me,
mm,
then it's probably going to happen because it starts with us. It starts with what we believe in. So yeah,
yeah.
it's really interesting how I think the majority of humanity feels that it's like it starts outside and then it comes in, you know, but it's
Mm,
really, it's the other way around. Like, we're creating everything around us. It starts with us. It starts with what we have in our minds. It starts with our belief systems. um yeah, and so just knowing that is such a huge piece of
mm,
information that can create such a massive shift into that realization that we are so powerful. Like, we are incredibly powerful and we can create our own reality. I mean, just, I know, like, saying that is kind of, I don't know, like, it's a little bit cliche. It's been said like a bajillion times, but it, you know, and loses its meaning, I think. But it's something that I have been like working with myself, and especially the last couple of months, and it's been really something in my immediate field where, you know, I've had that felt sense, not just like thinking and intellectualizing about something, but a felt sense that I am a powerful creator and that I am abundance. Like we are, we've got these toroidal fields, right? Coming out of, and working with every single one of us.
Mm.
And, it's energy, it's frequency and energy going out and frequency and energy coming in. And it's constantly moving. So if we know this and we work with this, um, God, the things that you can make for yourself, like the life that you can create for yourself, the things that you can manifest is just, it's mind blowing. And it's
God,
so
it
beautiful.
so is, Ruth, and I love how you've articulated that because it is. We are conscious creators of our reality.
Mm,
And, the Vedas say, like, we have everything inside ourselves, and it's just the distractions that are telling us that we don't. And we need to, attach to all these physical, whether that's, people or material possessions. And really, and that's what it is, coming back to the self and knowing that we are full and knowing that we are whole and tapping into that. I remember when I was about 12 and I went rushing into my parents' bedroom, and I was like, I think I'm God, because everything like I want, I'm created, like I've manifested in my life. And I remember my parents just being like, okay, but like on a level, like we are all connected and we are all creating. It's like, it's just what we're, what we're limiting ourselves.
mm,
That's the only thing that is stopping us from achieving anything. And like you say, it's really that changing ourselves, or not even changing ourselves, but just reclaiming ourselves, and how that changes like our external reality.
yeah, absolutely. And the fact that, our social conditioning has so much to answer for, society has so much to answer for with how much we actually do limit ourselves. We have been drummed down. I mean, just the education system just on its own, it's like we we weren't taught how to be conscious creators. We were taught how to pretty much obey, and to learn the things that we were allowed to learn and make sure that we remembered these things and were able to recite them back, and to just listen to our masters, so to speak. And we were completely drummed down and stripped of that knowledge that we are gods. We are, we're gods of a type, like, um we we are so powerful, we can create, and it's completely up to us to know this and to do it. But yeah, and even things like television and the shows that are out there, it's so funny. Like I'll watch a show now and I can see the programming, like I it's just so obvious to me now. um and just the language behind everything, programs. I mean,
Yes.
Jesus, like
Yeah.
how obvious do they want to be? Like, once you start kind of delving into that, like opening your eyes to what's happening around you, it's so obvious, and it's like, wow, like it's so clever that they've just been so open about it,
Mm,
open about how they are literally programming us, to do their bidding. And when I say they, I'm talking about, I guess, like the people actually running the world.
mm.
Um, and
Yeah,
yeah,
the darker energy side.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
completely agree with you. And I think that's where we really need to get in touch with like our intuition, and
Mm,
and how
yes.
do we and how do we do that? It's like you say, it's not allowing ourselves to be programmed. And so, like being mindful of the water that you're drinking, being mindful of the food that you're eating, being mindful of what you're watching, being mindful of all these things that are bombarding us. And because that is what drowns out the intuition.
Mm.
And we need that intuition to, because our eyes is an illusion, but like how we feel isn't. So going and always trusting how you feel in a situation or how you feel about something rather than what you're being shown and what's presenting itself is
Mm.
is the number one thing that I think we really need to cultivate, because as we are progressing, it's getting harder and harder to discern like what is real and what isn't real.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things is that I grew up with, and that, people that are, a majority of society are like, they look to, the news. Like, it's one of the biggest things where people get their information from, right? And it's probably one of the uh, biggest biased things that are around, that are absolutely programming people, and they're literally telling you what to think, and
Mm.
they're not encouraging us to think for ourselves and think critically, and there's even moments of political leaders going, I think it was a YouTube video or something of Jacinda Ardern,
Yes.
where's she from? New Zealand. She's the prime minister in New Zealand. And at one point, I thought she was amazing, right? I thought she was like, here to save the world kind of thing. And I wanted her to run Australia. But the more I kind of see what's happening, and open my eyes to what's happening, the more I see like her, what she was saying is literally, and I think it had something to do with the whole virus, like the coronavirus thing. And it was like, don't, we are the ones that are giving you the only thing that you need to know. Like, don't get your information from anywhere else, because
Mm.
we're telling you, and just listen to us. And I'm like, I mean, and people are actually cool with this. They're like, they listen to her because they trust her, and they go, yes, okay, I will do as you say. And I'm like, but like, it's dumbfounding. Like, I find it dumbfounding. It's like, we were made to think critically. We were
Mm.
made to, uh, have, be open to different sources of information, and be able to discern what feels right for us, what is our truth, right? Not for somebody to tell us, no matter what their position, not for somebody to tell us what the truth is, and for us to just, yes, sir, yeah,
Mm.
whatever you say. Like, it's just, to me, it's crazy that they're even so blatant about it now. They're so blatant about, don't think for yourself. We tell you what to think, you know?
Yeah, and I think that is when it gets scary, because I think you can. That's the same with religion, and
Mm,
it is that one way of thinking and that immovable thinking. And I
yes.
really feel that that is when we have that fanatical nature and we've become closed. So, any system or any belief that is telling me to only have this one way of thinking, or like close my thinking, that really sets alarm bells for me, because I always want to remain open, and this is why I'm always happy for people to challenge me on my beliefs and my values. Like, I want to know how you derived at that opinion and your
Mm,
experience. And I think that comes back to, the not being judgmental and being open enough to go along the lines of how someone else is thinking. And like my biggest mirror for that is my husband. He has a completely different way of thinking to myself. And that is so refreshing because it is continuously making me question and be curious and remaining open. And I think
Mm,
this is why we should seek and search out people that are not only thinking the way that we are, but thinking different. I want someone that is going to, yeah. And I
challenge
think
you.
that's, yeah, I think that's where it becomes really dangerous when we're just like, I'm just going to hang out with these people that believe what I believe and we can all be happy. Do you know what I mean? We just need to be more open and more mindful of, yeah, more curious
Mm,
about how we've got there, and rather than attaching to one belief or one source of truth.
mm.
I really feel that it comes back to, yeah, being open.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's been interesting because since I've started to go on this journey, like my journey of being more aware of what's happening around me and maybe choosing a different path for myself, something that felt more right for me, I guess. Um, there has been quite a few people that have fallen away from my life. Um, and it's interesting to think. I think for some of those people it's been them and they haven't been able to deal with what I've been doing that's new and different. But then also for me it's also been me. I've let also some people go because um not necessarily because they had differing opinions, but just because they couldn't accept me and my changes. They, like, I was getting called like a crazy conspiracy theorist, and then there was just like bad sort of negative energy behind all of that, and it was like, yeah, it's interesting. I like, you're making me think of like whether I cut people off because they were thinking differently to me, or because it was like negative, like energy that was kind of like sucking on mine, like draining mine.
Yeah, and
And
I really feel like there is that fine line and that fine
mm,
element. I really feel that relationships in this lifetime are, our greatest, like where we learn from, and our greatest lesson. And we have a lot of soul contracts. And there is, soul contracts that are there to give us friction, because in the friction we have the growth. So
mm,
always being able to distinguish, and like you're doing, reflecting on what that relationship was. And it doesn't mean that all the relationships are supposed to continue. Like that soul contract may have come to an end, and just releasing that. Okay, I learned my lesson from that. And it's interesting, these people that we have confrontation with, we think, they haven't learned anything, or like they're, that wasn't meaningful. But you'd be surprised like what seeds that you've planted, and they might not be ready for that information right now, but you have perhaps been a catalyst to make them question or have that seed of doubt. And
mm,
so the next seed of doubt, that it just piles on top and top. So always knowing that there is, yeah, that divine plan, and just going with how you feel in the moment. If that relationship is turning toxic and draining, then the frequency is not right to be in. And so, yeah, I definitely don't think that we need to hold on to,
mm,
soul contracts that have, gone past their expiry date, but just like being reflective on that. And that's a self-inquiry as well, going, okay, what was my role in that? How could I have approached that better? And that's the whole part of the journey and the
mm.
growing.
Yeah, absolutely. um Yeah, I was thinking, I was coming back to the whole society and people that think differently to you, and just like science would be a very big part of that. I would have people in my life that were all about science. And I'm like, I love science. I love science. Like, I think science is incredible. We have so much to be grateful for because of science. But as soon as you start using science as, like, you know, a religion, it's like
Mm.
people are turning it into a religion when you're like, oh, is there a peer reviewed study on that? If not, then I don't believe that that is right. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Is that what you need? Like, is that what you need for, to even think, like, to even be curious and maybe inquire about this new thing, like, are you just going to wait for scientists to tell you that this is okay to think, like, that this is right or wrong, you know
Yes, and I think there is that 3D linear thinking, this equals this.
mm,
And I really feel like we're shifting away from that now. And it's having that surrendering. And I notice people that are really hanging on to that science, like that rigidity, like are scared of the unknown. They want that certainty. And
yes,
science provides that certainty. So I understand where they are on that conscious level, like it's safe for them. It's unsafe for them to think, no, A isn't, B doesn't come after A. You know what I mean? Like, to disrupt that is to disrupt everything that they know is true. And, as humans, we want that certainty, and it is a scary way. So it is really the ego just keeping us safe, like to not go outside the box.
absolutely. It's that shattering of our worldview and shattering of our belief systems. They're the things that make us who we are. And as soon as somebody starts to kind of knock on that, shake that a little bit, people are like, freak out. It's like, don't touch that. Like, that is, like you said, it's what keeps me safe.
Yes.
Um, but also to realize that, science and doctors and, everything that we have used in the past to discern what is right, what is wrong, and um, they've been bought. Like, so many of them have been bought. Politicians, I mean, god, like, most of them are bought. um so it's about, then again, coming back to you, coming back to your intuition. What feels right when you're listening to something, when you're listening to someone talk, when you're reading something. Tune in, go in, and how does that feel for you? Does it feel light? Does it feel, does it lift you up? If that's the case, then it's probably true for you. And if it feels heavy and, like, sits heavy in your gut, or makes your gut sort of like churn or something, like, that's probably not right for you. And it is that working with your intuition. And if you haven't worked with your intuition before, then it's a matter of practicing that, because you will get better at it. It's like a muscle, right?
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And I love what you said about the externalizing, and especially on doctors, because in Ayurveda we say, we are the self-healer. So,
Mm,
we do have that power. There's tools and remedies and things like that, but at the end of the day, it's the body that is healing itself and has the power. So again, it's coming back to the self, and like you said, that intuition and growing that muscle.
mm. And just quickly, I'm currently reading a Dr. Joe Dispenza book. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, he's a cool guy. What is it? Becoming Superhuman, I think
yes.
that's what it's called. Yeah. And he talks, I mean, pretty much the whole book is how he talks about how we can heal ourselves. You know,
Yes.
people, like, he has had so many of his clients come in with horrible diseases and illnesses, and just by meditating
Mm.
and putting themselves in the quantum realm,
Mm.
they have been able to heal themselves. And it's you know, because we don't know that much about it, we think, oh, it's miracle. It's, it has to be a miracle, or it's fake, or
Spontaneous
it's,
healing.
like, yeah, you can't see it. You can't, it's not physical. Like it can't, like it's hard to believe and it's hard to grasp. But just because we cannot explain something, it does not mean that it's wrong, or that it's fake, or that someone is bullshitting us. Like, it does not mean that. And I can't stress that enough. We just need to open our minds, and we need to open our hearts to be able to feel what is true, feel what is right for us. Yeah.
Mm. Yes, I love that. And Dr. Joe's work is incredible in that regard, because he is really taking the scientific and trying to make it the mystical, sorry, make it more scientific. So he is getting a lot more people to understand just the power that we do have.
Mm.
And yeah, there's so much power. And if you look at all the cases that have gone into remission, or there's been spontaneous healing that there's been no further studies on, all the through line with those is always involves some kind of metaphysical healing, or if that is a belief or some kind of self-inquiry and belief that you can, overcome the illness. And in Ayurveda, we always say that illness is not good or bad. Illness is there to really make you wake up, make you understand that how you've been living and how you've been going through life needs to change. So it's your soul giving you that opportunity to go, okay, and you see this happen. People completely change their life, what they eat, how they live, what they do in their spare time. And so I want to look at that disease process as an opportunity, and as not as like a sentence, or it doesn't have to be heavy. It's just, let's work it out before we get to that disease state, but understand if we are in that disease state, that you can overcome it.
Absolutely. Tara, I'm going to leave it there. It has been enlightening, and I've loved this conversation with you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much, Ruth. It was a pleasure.
Okay.